Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. Talk with a buddy of mine about a safety issue that you may or may not have thought of before. Travis Gibson joins us from Mgm Targets. He is, of course, an expert on steel targets and everything. Hey, Travis, how you doing, man?
Good, Tom. How are you?
I am good. I mean, Lord knows we could talk about a lot of things. We could talk about fishing, or flying, or guns, or competition, or anything else. Because when you and I get together, it's usually like an hour's worth of talking about guns. So there's that.
Yes,
question first of all, tell people about the Mgm Targets.
So Mgm Targets, we build basically firearms training equipment is the easiest way to put it. Primarily steel targets and, cardboard targets for competition, but basically everything that you can think of, different guns to shoot steel targets with to get better with firearms.
Okay, and of course you are an excellent competitive shooter. You've been doing that for a gazillion years now, I believe.
Yeah, I still feel like I'm a new guy, but yeah, when I look back, it's been a while.
All right, so, we see, especially when you go to public ranges where people may not be conversant with the safety protocol for shooting steel, what are some of the things that people need to know about safety when shooting steel targets?
I think the biggest, the main takeaway from this is make sure you're using quality steel, and I know, and that's really hard for for people to understand, to get their heads wrapped around, especially when you just have, the only thing you can do is go up and look at the piece of steel. And, really there's no way to tell if it's a good piece of steel just by looking at it. So if there's any question whatsoever, if you're in a, public range, you can go ask the range master, hey, what kind of steel is this? And what you're looking for is AR-500 or better. So AR-500 refers to the hardness of the steel. So There's AR-500, AR-550, those sorts of things. And then if it's on a public range and there's nobody there to ask, and let's say that the target is, within 25 yards, only shoot that with pistol. And if you're able to go down range and look at it, if the target face is nice and smooth, that's probably a safe pistol target to shoot. If there's a bunch of little pock marks in it, possibly even holes or craters, whatever you want to call them, I would not recommend shooting that with a pistol, or a rifle for that matter, at that distance, because there's a possibility of one of the a fragment of the bullet actually coming back and getting the shooters.
So if the plate is smooth and it's flat, they're designed so the bullet hits it, and it generally, I'm not going to say never, but generally is not going to come back. But if you got pock marks like little craters of the moon in there, there's no telling what's going to happen, because there's no guarantees of where the core, the jacket, or anything else is going to go.
That is exactly right. And, my father, Mike Gibson, he's got a great way of explaining this. He says it's like throwing an egg against a wall. If you throw an egg against the wall, it's basically going to splatter in 360 degrees, and there's going to come back about 10 degrees off of the plane of the wall. But if you're throwing it against, a brick wall that's got a bunch of curves and like you said, craters of the moon on that thing, there's a chance you're probably going to get some of that back on you. So, if it's nice and smooth, you should be in good shape.
Okay, so now that's 20. You say 25 yards with a handgun, and I know people will shoot closer. When you start shooting closer, if you're not using frangible ammo designed for that, you do risk having basically the core or the jacket actually coming back and hitting somebody.
That's exactly right. And, we make a specifically designed target that's meant to be engaged at closer ranges with centerfire rifles. But the majority of them, and if you're looking to go down and buy a target from your local supplier, ask them, say, hey, how close can I shoot this with a centerfire rifle? And about 95% of the targets on the market currently, probably even more than that, it's probably more like 98%, are not meant to be shot with a centerfire rifle any closer than about 100 yards.
Okay, I got a quick story, because this is going to get us to what we're talking about, because it really is about velocity as much as anything. I had some really good steel, high-quality steel, had it out at a range, private range. Didn't think about it because we were generally the only ones out there. Then I go out there one time, and sure enough, there's a hole right through this target. And it's out at 200 yards. So I'm talking to the guy whose land we're using. He said, well, yeah. He says, I went out there, I shot your target. I thought it was going to be okay. I said, well, dude, what'd you shoot it with? He says, a 257 Weatherby. I'm thinking, yeah, you're going about 3,600 feet per second and probably 3,000 plus by the time it gets to 200 yards. Talk about the issue of velocity. That's kind of our criteria for some of this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Speed kills. That's it. And there's a lot of different areas that applies, and steel targetry is one of them. So the majority of the rounds that you're going to be shooting, if they're in the 3,000 feet per second range, and that's going to be, for people that don't know, AR-15s, 308s, 6.5 Creedmoor. That's one that a lot of people are starting to use. All of those are probably on the high end, 3,100 feet per second, and lower than that. So those are kind of getting up there to the top end of what you should be shooting the steel targets with. But you're exactly right. If you're shooting a projectile that's doing, 3,400 feet per second, most of the time it is going to smoke right through even good quality AR-550 plate like we use.
And it's weird. I mean, when you look at it, it looks like the steel was made of butter, and the bullet just went right through and left a clean hole, and that is purely a function of velocity.
That's exactly right. And and there was a time there was a company that was even making 5.56 ammo or 223 ammo that we were seeing at some of our competitions show up, and it was on the high side. It was like 3,100 feet per second. But what they were doing is they were actually making, if I'm jumping ahead here, stop me, but they were actually making the projectile out of a bimetal core. So what that means is it's an FMJ. So
it was a lighter bullet going faster.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was a 55 grain bullet. But the other thing that they were doing that was really bad for the steel was they were making a bimetal core, so it was like a lead and steel mix. And so that lead and steel was another thing that would just, it would poke right through them, even though it was only 3,100 feet per second.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, the two main things to know is, keep your distance, know what the distance is for the steel you're using and the caliber you're using, and also watch your velocity when it comes to rifle rounds, because you can end up, and the thing is, once you poke a hole in a plate, you have made it unsafe to shoot, haven't you?
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. We have people ask us, say, hey, can I shoot X, Y, Z at it? And I'm making a hand load and this, that, and the other. Look, man, if you're going to go do that, like shoot down in the very bottom corner of it, put one round on it, go down and inspect it at whatever distance you want to shoot it at. And we're going to kind of, we got to let you be the guy that makes the decision on whether or not that's the amount of degradation to that target plays is acceptable or not.